Welcome back for another episode of The Life of an Entrepreneur. I am here with Sheri and Mike Gillet of PerchForPets.com. Hello.
Hello.
So, for those of you that have been following the Life of an Entrepreneur series, I am attempting to bring you a wide variety of entrepreneurs in which we will examine some of the aspects of their business, the effect that it's had on their life, and just their particular approach to doing business in general. So you guys ready to dive in?
Absolutely.
Okay. And for those that are watching this is the second time we did this. The first time the card did not want to save the recording. So anyway, if you're feeling deja vu with this, now you know why.
Yep.
So, all right, so Perch for Pets. You guys both have a background in design and manufacturing.
Correct.
Yes.
And you, I believe you told me before, you have a history with juvenile products or making and designing products that are for children or infants, right?
Right. Both Mike and I worked in the juvenile product industry together for about 15 years. And we designed products for like Graco and Kiko and Joey and Nuna and some other companies. And that was I did the concept development, industrial design, CAD work, and then Mike was design engineer and compliance and testing. So that's our background.
So you have all the components necessary to design and manufacture a product.
Mm-hmm.
And at some point you made the decision or had the idea to invent, conceptualize, and bring a product to market that was for pets. So how did that come about?
Well, I think going to meetings, Mike and I had designed, car seats together and some other products together, and we go to these meetings and they'd say, this product sold like $5 million. And we were just looking at each other and saying, we have all the components we need to design a product and to take it all the way to manufacturing. But we didn't know quite what, that would be or what that product would be. So we kind of like played with the idea and talked about it. And then actually our pets were the ones that told us what to design. I don't know if you want to.
Well, just watching our pets as we're sitting there, and we would quite often share the same space when we're developing a product, sitting next to each other. And I might be doing CAD work, and she might be doing some sketching. I might be doing some engineering. But we'd look over our pets. We'd have a car seat and a bouncer over there, and the pets would always they want to share the space that we're sharing. They'd be in the room, sitting in the car seat or sitting in the bouncer, and we're talking about this, and it's like, maybe we should do something like that. They already use these products anyhow.
Yeah, it's kind of like the aha moment. Our pets are telling us what they want us to design for them.
Okay, so now you realize you want to make a product for pets.
Right.
And you want to do something that's within the wheelhouse of what you already have experience with.
Exactly.
And where did the actual Perch concept come from? What brought that part of the product to light?
Right.
Well, I think looking at behaviors of pets, and when they go to get into a bed, they start spinning around and they kind of make like a little nest, and they kind of they want it to conform to their body. And so watching, pet behavior, and it seems like they're always up on the couch or up on the bed. They always want to be up on something. So that's how we came up with the concept of a nest for pets.
So I'm picturing you with your reading glasses at the tip of your nose and a notepad following, do you have a dog?
We have a dog and a cat.
And it's a what kind of dog?
A pug.
So she's following a pug around, and she's taking notes on the behavioral science of what this pug is likely looking for to be comfortable. Is that how that happened? Or was there, it was?
Ethnographic research on pet behavior. And
I'm going to have to put a graphic on the screen that clearly defines ethnographic research.
Yes.
Learn something new every day, right?
Right.
Okay, so now you've got an idea. So for those that might be watching this that have an interest in designing and bringing a product forward. So what's the next step with that? I mean, do we sketch? Do we do something else?
Well, the first step is to sit down and just start sketching and coming up with shapes and forms that we wanted something that would look good in your house and also fit a pet. So looking at the way pets lay down, they kind of have their back and then their legs, and they kind of make this natural kind of rounded triangle shape. And so that's kind of the shape that evolved through the sketches that seemed most natural and looked really nice. Then the next step is to put it into CAD, which I use SolidWorks, and then you're looking at, well, for shipping this thing has to come apart and go flat. So how does it come apart? How does it connect? Do you use Velcros? Do you use, press connections? Do you use other types of clips? So just brainstorming through all this. And
I don't know what any of those things are, but they sound really official.
So, and then the next step, we looked at, pets really like that slung seat because it kind of conforms around their body. And also infants really like that too. A lot of the bouncers have the slung seat. And it's also really kind of gentle on, their bones and their body because it's really, it kind of conforms and it's soft. So after we go through the concept stage, then we print out full size the CAD, and I turn it over to Mike, and then he takes it to the next step.
So you have to bring all of her wild ideas into a practical reality. What's the process of that like?
So first of all, you have a 3D sketch, which is actually very good to work from. So if I want to make a physical product and she can draw that in CAD and print it out full scale. Now we're still doing this at home, keep in mind. So we're printing out 8.5 to 11 sheets, taping these together. So I lay all this out on the floor, tape all these 8.5 by 11 sheets together, and create my full scale model. And I just took that model or those sheets to, well, in this case it was just a makerspace, and I went to a tubing bender. Now I'd never bent tubing on their bender before, and so I had to go through the process of learning how to use their bender, of course. We had just bought tubing. Really our first model was just, for the most part, a looks-like model. And so we wanted something that was made of tubing, was bent according to the design that we had, and was basically the right shape, so we had something that we can look at. And so I think you kind of go one of two paths. Either you make something that is going to be a physical model that you could function the way it needs to, or a looks like model. We always say kind of it either looks like or functions like. In this case, we wanted something that looked like the right model, looked like the right shape.
Yeah. And so from there, then I sewed the fabric and we put it on it, and we tested it with our pets, see how they fit. Looked at it, had people look at it, redesigned it.
This was probably too weak at this point. It was
Yeah.
bend easy.
Yeah.
So now we said it needs to be stronger than this. And
So for those that are prospective product designers, what you went through could have potentially saved a train wreck
yes.
of a production process. And
Oh, yeah.
is that pretty common? Do people skip the testing or the practical reality part and end up with a container full of
I hope not.
well, not you, but you guys clearly have experience
Yeah.
and understanding of how the
Yeah.
process works, and I think it's until you see a whole bunch of something break,
Yeah.
in real life,
Yep,
whether
yep.
it's someone else's or your own, you don't know what you
Yeah.
don't know until the moment you realize you don't know it.
Yeah.
So
And
so
that is
that was
very true.
probably a really good planning and testing
Yeah.
on your part.
And we went back and forth. I mean, redesigning, making prototypes, fixing the soft goods, fixing the tube bending, strengthening thicker tubes, different connections. It just went back and forth till we came up with something that was very sturdy and it had the right shape. And it was a process.
Even at that point, then you have to start looking at, for the intended use of the product, you have to start thinking of the intended or unintended misuse. So we had to start kind of work through that part of the process too.
Like, would that be like a 5-year-old sitting on it
Exactly.
or something
Exactly.
like that.
It looks like a seat. It can function like a seat. Who might use this?
Yeah.
So we actually had our daughter, who was 6 at the time,
Yeah.
sit in this. So she actually laid in this product. So from my design background and engineering background, I wanted something that was twice as strong as it needed to be. So I wanted a safety factor of 2 times. And so if our design is to go 30 or 35 pounds, I'm testing it up to like 70 pounds. And I thought, well, who is likely to use this? They're not going to just lightly sit in it. They're going to jump in or drop into it. So I'm dropping actually cases of water bottles, full water bottles.
I was seeing a bowling ball for some reason. Yeah.
Well, the water bottles kind of fit that space. So I'd put one in there, that would drop another one on top of that. And so I was testing it to like about 60 pounds. And then I had my daughter sit in. I actually have photos of myself sitting in this product. And
so how many of these are in a dumpster somewhere that failed along the way to the one that succeeded?
We have a basement full of them.
And you can probably get a good deal on all those at perchforpets.com. So make sure to check that out. No warranty included. Well, that's interesting. You know, a lot of businesses, I told you before we started the interview, we do web development. It's kind of the same way. You know, you just, and one of the things that's always a challenge is to try to figure out how your users are going to use it. And that was one of the things with GigaBook that took us a long time to get it open, because we spent a little too much time trying to guess what our users needed when we should have just maybe even just put crap out there and just to see what people were using, not even charge for it, and you know, get an idea of, you know, because I know we built a lot of stuff that no one ended up using, and a lot of the stuff we didn't think people would use was the most popular stuff. It wasn't until we actually put it out there and let people break it. Okay, so your product is good now. Is it up dogs that are up to 60 pounds or?
This design is to 35
pounds.
Okay.
We're going to have 2 different sizes. The one that is in production right now is up to 35 pounds.
So that's pretty much any cat. That's a house cat.
Yeah.
Right.
And a medium dog.
Right.
Medium, right.
Okay. Now, do you have plans to make something bigger, or did big dogs not really love these things the same way?
No, we have a design for one that goes up to 75 pounds. It's larger. And then we're going to design a support on the back, because we've had people ask us, they've got dogs that are like 105 pounds. But with the cantilever system that we have right now, it's going to need a support in the back, but that's to be designed in the future.
Okay. So Mike, you have a background in compliance. Is when you're designing a product for a pet, is there compliance standards that need to be met? Like, I'm sure there's a list that's too long to mention for children.
For children, it definitely is. Actually, from our children background, we did a lot of our designing to children's standards. We actually, when we sent out maybe about 10 of these, probably for people to try them out. And what we saw was, quite often we saw babies being put in there. No, don't put
that's
babies
not
in
the
there.
intent.
That's not the intended
do
use.
not do
I was
that.
going to mention, you know, we have a product that our baby goes in, and when we had a French Bulldog, I kept finding the French Bulldog in the baby's little rocker, or spring, I don't know what it's called.
Yeah, a bouncer,
But yeah, we had a dog that definitely loved that concept, more so than his own bed. Now let's actually talk about that. So with what you guys have built compared to a traditional dog bed, what are some of the benefits over your product compared to a regular dog bed?
Well, some of our criteria for this design was it had to look nice in the house, and it had to have a pad that came out that was easy to wash. One of the frustrations that I always had was the real common dog beds they have now are the real big thick pads, and they get stinky really quick. They get really smelly. They don't fit in the wash really well, and then they don't dry real well. So the best thing to do is just toss them.
They hold the smell.
They hold the smell.
And they have a big brown dirt circle in the middle. That's what I found.
And we tried like the cedar chip ones. You know, there's a lot of ideas that are out there, but none of them really seem to work well.
So we wanted to design something that had a pad that came out, you could just throw it in the wash, or buy a replacement pad, or update the pad with a color that matched your house. We wanted something that the pets liked, that conformed to their shape, was raised off the ground for like airflow. So it has a mesh bottom, and in the summer, when it's real hot like it is now, you can just take the pad out and the pets can lay on the mesh so they get like airflow. So they're not like laying on that wet, the ground, like sweating and things like that. So.
And you could even put this over like the AC register, or if you want to go outside, you can take it outside with you, and it doesn't like sit on the ground. It doesn't pick up dirt and grass from the yard. It has its own frame that sits off the ground.
Mm-hmm. So we wanted something that would last a long time, that wasn't a disposable product. So we did a steel frame that's powder coated, and then the fabric that we chose is real similar to the stroller fabric, the outdoor stroller fabric. So it has a long life.
And the pads are thin and very easy to remove and wash.
Yeah. And
Okay, so now you've conceptualized a product, you've built a prototype,
Right.
and now you got some decisions to make.
Right.
So what comes next after that? What was your path after that?
Well, we also wanted the product to be configurable, because everybody's house is different, and their pets are different. So we wanted people to be able to customize it. So we made it so you can buy an extension. It has this little tunnel, so it can be raised up, because cats like to look out the window. So you can buy this extension that makes it high enough so they can look out the window, and it's got this little tunnel that they can hide in, and then you can add a canopy. So we thought through the process as far as making something that you can make your own and customize for your own needs.
I want to hear about how you actually made it. Like now you got to build something.
Right.
So you have to, at this point, have some kind of order to get a manufacturer to care.
Right.
You have to pay for it.
Yes.
You have to stomach the act of paying for
Yes.
it, and then you have to actually pay for it. So what, for those that, I see a lot of people talking in, Facebook rooms and different, whatever, that have a product that they want to build.
Mm-hmm.
So what insight can you give a hopeful about actually now producing it?
Yeah. So what we did was, because of our background in juvenile products, we knew people in China and we knew factories that we worked with. So we had sources, but we really wanted to explore American made, and we had done that with some companies that we worked with. I mean, there's products that we worked on that are American made too. We explored the process and found out that it really wasn't financially feasible to be American made.
Was that because of the labor costs or something else?
Partially the labor costs. In China, the factories are set up to where you send them your CAD drawings. They make the prototypes. They will bend the tube. They will source, like they had to source these little feet. We wanted custom fabric, so they sourced having our custom fabric printed. They sew the fabric. They assemble it. They put it in a box, and you get it all ready to ship to your customer. In the U.S., we probably sent out like 70 bids alone just for the tubing, and only got maybe 5 or 6 responses. And the responses were, well, that's not really within our wheelhouse. We really don't do that. Or the cost was probably twice as much as what the whole product was in China, and that's just for the tubing. So to get it made in America, we would have to source the tubing, the fabric, someone to assemble it, someone to print the boxes, someone to put it all together. It probably would have cost us about 5 times as much to have it made in America. And
the U.S. manufacturing model isn't really, it's different than the one in China. China's a one-stop shop. The U.S. is specialized. They specialize in the tube bending, maybe that and powder coating, but they don't do this part. And so the business models are very different. Manufacturing models are very different in the U.S.
Yeah. And if we wanted to become a factory, and I think a lot of entrepreneurs, it's the way they do American made, is they actually set up their own factory and they make it in-house. That's not who we want to be.
Sure.
So we went over to China, and there was a couple factories that we knew did good quality juvenile products.
Mhm.
And so we toured them. We had them make a prototype. We reviewed the prototypes, and then we chose one of them to go with.
Are they receptive to you when you bring these ideas? Because I think that you said your first run is going to be approximately 500 units,
Correct.
which for a new product is a lot, but for a manufacturing plant in China probably is a drop in the bucket.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
So what's the reception like when you show up and you say, hey, we want to make 500 or 2,000, and they're wanting you to make 2 million?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it really depends on the factory. There's the larger factories who probably would just say, no thanks.
Mm-hmm.
Then there's, the mid-level and then the new factories. We negotiated with them. They wanted the minimum order, they wanted 2,000. And so then we came back and said, would you do 500? And they said that they would. So they're open to negotiation. And you just have to find someone that you can work with and then look at what they've done in the past and whether it's good quality.
Okay.
I think that would be a strong recommendation. Look what they're already making, and if you can go there, walk the factory, see, kind of watch the workers, look how clean it is,
Mhm.
because when you don't, there's factories in China that are not so good and they do a poor job, but there are definitely factories there that do a good
Really
job.
care and they do a good job.
Yeah.
So now we've created a whole bunch of product,
Mhm.
and we got to sell it.
Yeah.
Oh my.
Well, there's a step before selling it. We had to figure out how to get it from China
Very
to
good point.
Kansas.
Okay, so how do we do that?
So I went and I researched different, it's called freight forwarding, and there are companies that will collect it from China, get it onto a ship, get it to the port, put it onto a truck, and then bring it to you. And
Sounds like hidden surprises.
yeah,
to
and
me.
they have to get it through customs. You can do all that yourself, or you can hire a company that knows how to do it and they have the process down. Customs it's like all these forms, all this stuff. There's special codes for each product. It's a lot of stuff that I don't.
You have a compliance guy on staff.
Yeah, there's a bunch of stuff about that I don't want to know. So
Me neither.
Yeah, so we found a good freight forwarder, and there's terms that we had to learn like FOB and
That's
which
where
is freight on board. So if you buy something from China, there's these little codes. They'll say, okay, here's the price, and there's one EX something, FOB, you want FOB, which means that they will take it to the port, and they're responsible for your product to get it to the port. If you do the EX, which is a lower price, that means you have to find someone to take it from the factory to the port.
In China,
Right.
keep in mind.
And you're definitely not in China, so that
Right.
makes it a little more challenging.
Yeah. So all those.
So how do you go about doing that? Are there just openly companies that are out there that
Yes.
deal with this
Absolutely.
process?
And I talked to several of them.
How do you know
about
they're going to
this.
pick it up at the factory and actually drop it off at the port?
Well, that's why we ask for our price to be FOB,
FOB.
which is freight on board. That means that they will take it and actually to the port. The factory will take it to the port to your freight forwarder. And we got quotes from several different ones, and we actually went with one called Flexport. They're kind of a slick new company, and you can. They have a little map that shows exactly where your product is. It has this little boat. It shows you where it's at,
So it'll sit in one place when it's in customs in LA
Yeah,
for
yeah.
like a month
Right.
waiting to come through.
Right.
So.
Yeah,
Well, the nice thing
exactly.
about that is, though,
It still hasn't moved, honey. Well, it will. Don't
Yeah.
worry. A month later. But.
they do send information, and they send emails, so you kind of can keep up to date on kind of where they're at. Sheri had never been through that before. I wasn't so involved in the first time that we had stuff shipped her. She did a trial run with she had 2 pallets of just some product sent to us and went through the process herself, which I think really kind of says a lot to kind of the ability to go through this, never having done this before.
Yeah.
I was probably like maybe the person who should have been doing it, and yet she was going through this.
Yeah, I thought it was fascinating.
I think it sounds like you guys have taken a very smart and logical approach to what you're doing. It's based on the experience that you've had working for larger companies, and that's one of the things that I think we can take out of this conversation so far is you guys worked for some big companies,
Right.
and you can learn a lot from that. The things that we do every day, all day, oftentimes
Sure.
become what we're experts at,
Right.
which are then the most likely scenarios for us as entrepreneurs.
Sure.
Mhm.
Yep.
So I want to talk about selling stuff because that's what I
Okay.
like doing. I hate compliance. I can draw a stick figure that will blow your mind, but I love selling stuff.
Yeah.
So with that, you guys learned a couple lessons early with a Kickstarter campaign.
Yes, we know the product development process. I mean, that's our expertise. The marketing is where it starts getting fuzzy for us. So we thought, well, we'll try a Kickstarter. Went into it naively. Didn't get as much. I guess beforehand you have to do a lot of promotions. We're talking months of internet promotions and all that kind of stuff to get set up, which we didn't do as much as we should have. And also at that time, the minimum order from the factory, they were saying they wanted 2,000 units. So our Kickstarter goal was super high. So we didn't reach our goal, but it did get our name out there, and we got a pretty good large following of people that liked the product.
So at this point, you realize that you have what feels like significant enough interest in your product,
Right.
but we set the bar a little too high for
Right.
the ordering.
For the Kickstarter.
So at that point, you have what I like to call a coin toss moment,
Right.
and I have them regularly, more than I'd like, but I think you get at least one in every business. A coin toss moment is when you say, honey, we're going to flip this coin, and heads will keep doing this, and tails we're going to quit. And I know that, and I actually have a chapter in $1 Million Bedroom titled Coin Toss Moment,
Right.
where my wife and I had this moment 2 years into the 8-year history of our business. And for me personally, I was making the same amount of money I was making working for other people, except for I didn't have the stress and the liability and all the other stuff that went with it. So I said, I literally said, Jill, let's flip a coin and see what happens. And she said, are you really going to go get a job? And I said, no. And I put the coin back in my pocket, but still it's a coin toss moment. So maybe heads I win, tails you lose. That could have been one of those things. So you have this, so here you are at your coin toss moment, and what are some of the things you clearly chose whatever side was related to going forward. So how did that come about, and what was your thought process during that?
Well, I think the Kickstarter was going to be, that was going to be our coin toss. If it failed, we were going to go, oh, maybe there's not enough interest in this. I don't know if that's what we were thinking. But we got enough interest in it that we didn't quite want to give up yet. So right after that, I did the Million Cups talk. And my Million Cups talk was going to be, yeah, we did Kickstarter. It was great. We made our goal. I had to go up there and say, we did a Kickstarter and it didn't work, and we didn't reach our goal. And I was expecting the feedback to be, well, there's your sign, maybe you need to walk away. But the feedback from the Kickstarter was so positive. They're saying you have a great product, we love it, you need to continue. And then even they were saying that our price point was too low. The product was nice enough that it could, ask for a higher price point. So that really spurred us forward. So then I thought, well, we are not going to come up with the money for 2,000 units. So I went back to the factory and I said, this was another coin toss. I said, if they will accept a lower minimum order. And I asked them, and they said yes. I asked for 500 minimum order, which I could borrow against my retirement.
Sure.
And cover that. So
and
that's
then at that point, you get to live a very somewhat of a life of regret for not asking earlier, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. I should have asked earlier.
Yeah,
Lesson learned.
I always tell people it never hurts to ask. We've all heard that before.
Yeah.
But if you don't ask for it, you're very unlikely to get it.
That's right.
Right.
Yeah,
That's right.
that's in my first book, Balance Me, I have a chapter titled Jump and Then Build Wings, which every entrepreneur or anybody who's brought anything to market gets to embrace that.
Sure.
So the thing that I do say is don't just jump, jump knowing that you have everything you need to build the wings.
Right, right.
Otherwise, the decision's made on how you're going to land.
Right.
So, okay, so you have product that's about to be available for sale. When is that going to be available?
So as soon as it hits the water, which should be in a week or so.
Which is in the middle of August 2017, right?
Right.
Okay.
Well, next week, so
Okay.
end of July, we're going to open up our website, e-commerce, the shop, for pre-sale. And for the pre-sale, we're going to offer free shipping for anyone that buys it before. And that'll give us an idea of what the demand is, and so we'll start getting an understanding when we need to start placing new orders.
So, and how much does your product sell for?
It's going to sell for $129 for
Okay.
the base model, and then the accessories are above that.
Okay.
So you can add the accessories, the hanging basket or the canopy.
Okay.
Then what we're going to do is we're going to send out a Facebook post that it's available for pre-sale. If you share our posts, we're going to enter it in a drawing, and we're going to give a couple of them away, a random drawing from the Facebook people sharing their posts. So.
Do you have any plans to do any promotion around people sending or posting pictures of their pet in your product?
Yes, that's a great idea.
Okay.
Yeah, we would like to do that. That's
Okay.
a really good idea.
All right, well, I like that a lot. Now, here's the next question is, do we get to do a follow-up video where we drop bowling balls on these things? Because now I feel like I really want to see Mike testing these. And I want to see Sheri taking notes on one of them. And I think also if we could get your pug in here and maybe do an interview with him and see if he's wanting to enjoy it. Okay, so, and obviously I'm just kidding. Maybe not, I don't know. Oh man, I'm really not kidding. I do like to do weird stuff like that. I'm sure it's amazing. You guys really seem like you have such a strong background with what you do. And you know, we had a short break in our conversation, and you were talking about you felt like sometimes you take for granted the experience that you guys have had. So let's actually take just a second while we wrap up, and let's review that. What are a few things, if I was a hopeful product inventor or entrepreneur, what are a few things that you might take for granted now that would be really useful for me along the way? I think some of the things that I heard was, well, testing a product just to make sure you're not about to order $50,000 worth of scrap. And then it sounds like you really did a great job of doing product research. And I think you told me before we started that you guys together have your name on nearly 100 or more patents.
Well, I probably have probably 56, close to 60, and Mike probably has like
25, 30.
Yeah.
That's a lot more. That is however many that adds up to more than I have.
That's right.
So, but what, you know, all right, so now you see this encompassing, you know, road that we have to examine as hopefuls. So what are a few of those things that you would tell someone that was just getting started with all this about what to avoid or maybe what to do better?
For me, well, kind of as we're developing a product, we both have kind of a different approach. Sheri, she sees in 3D for one thing. I mean, for her to put it in a model, kind of looking at it in a modeling program and just sketching ideas, that's how she functions. For me, I have to get something in my hands. So I'm wanting to build my rough prototype as quickly as I can. I want something I can look at because I start to see issues from there. And then living with your product. I mean, we've had samples in our house for probably almost 2 years now. Our pets use these every day. Our cat and our dog actually sleep in the same one together sometime now, which you learn new things. My daughter will sit in it. We have the jokes like, well, what if the drunk guy goes, or he thinks it's a chair? So you start thinking about things you normally wouldn't once you have a product in your house and you live with it every day for a while. And we've done this for, like I said, over a year now.
Yeah, and I think you have an idea in your head, and there's a saying, you know, don't fall in love with your own ideas.
I say similar to that. Yeah.
And so even though you almost, as a designer, that's almost a requirement of the job, is to love your own idea. You also have to be able to let go a little bit, because and we sent it out to probably 10 or 15 people around the United States to get their reviews and to get their feedback. And you need to really listen to people's feedback and then adjust your designs accordingly.
I would imagine that a career as a designer, you probably learned a lot about that.
Yeah.
I think we had this discussion on the phone not too long ago.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure if we mentioned it earlier, but Sheri and I have been discussing some involvement between some of the students at the Olathe Public Schools and GigaBook, and I think we had talked about that in that regard, that, you know, especially in the design aspect, is how thick would the skin of a 17-year-old be?
Right.
Because like you said, we have a tendency to fall in love with our own ideas, which can make us severely I don't know if critical or hyper responsive to that criticism.
Right.
And that's a thing too. You know, I think that I run into people a lot that, okay, this is a common contact for me. They say, hey Matt, I'd love to talk to you about this business that I want to start. Okay, cool, what is it? Well, I can't tell you.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to be able to give you brilliant advice then. But I always tell people is, you know, you have to tell your idea to a lot of people and get that feedback. And then you also have to make sure that you get it, that you're requesting feedback from people that will give you an honest assessment, because nothing will drive your bank account down into the red faster than, well, some people call them yes men or whatever you want to say. People say, oh, that's a great idea, I love it, and then you turn your back and they're like, oh man, that's the worst idea I've ever heard in my life. But, you know, so, you know, okay, so that's an important part. And then overall, do you have anything else that you would want to put out for people that want to make a new product? I think so many people have a great invention that they want to make.
I agree.
So how many? But how many of those ideas are actually great?
Yeah.
Pretty small amount, or I mean, do you think that the actual coming to fruition, where your idea actually, you know, goes from prototype to sales floor to success? Now, I've promised to try to be very realistic with everyone, but where does that line stop?
You know, that's a really good question, because there's so many components and factors. A mediocre idea, but if somebody is very driven and they're able to market it well, they may be successful.
Sure.
It could be a brilliant idea and then fail. Maybe the timing's not right. Maybe their
marketing isn't right.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's one of the areas that
just because you build it does not mean they will come.
And that's an area that we are going to really have to pursue strongly. We actually brought on a great graphic designer and a marketer, and he's going to help us. We have a son that is a marketing manager, and he's going to be helping us also with marketing. So we do have some resources, but you have to recognize where you're weak, and that we knew early on that was, like, for Mike and I, going to be a struggle point.
Well, I think G.I. Joe said it best when he said, knowing is half the battle.
Right.
Sure.
And, you know, that's the thing, is you can't be good at everything that you do all the time, every time.
Right.
I like to say, if you need a house made out of bricks, you need to call a bricklayer.
Right.
You don't call the plumber and tell him you need a brick wall made. And if you do, you shouldn't be surprised if it slopes downhill, because that's what plumbers know best, is that certain things flow downhill.
Sure.
So, all right, well, once again, another amazing episode of The Life of an Entrepreneur. Perchforpets.com. You're going to be able to keep your pet in amazing levels of comfort, style, and beauty for years to come. An amazing product from Mike and Sheri Gillet. See you guys next time.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.